Hello everyone, welcome to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to another match preview. It's Watford versus Huddersfield on Saturday. Once again, we're joined by Sam and Elliot for this one. We're on the back of the Manchester United defeats. It's two back-to-back defeats for Watford, Swansea and then Manchester United. But I thought Watford gave a good account of themselves against Manchester United at the weekend. And hopefully we could take that kind of performance into the Huddersfield game this weekend. The best place to start, as always, Elliot, is the press conference that you were at today, which has received a lot of reaction online, I think, from one quote from Mr. Munoz. But first off, do you want to maybe summarise the key points that Shishko mentioned and the team news for this weekend?
Yeah, so player-wise, there's not much changing. He said Stipe Perica could be back, but he'd have to make a late call on that. Chalobah's injury from the game at Manchester United wasn't serious, but he might not be fit for Saturday. As for the long-term or longer-term absentees, Kabasele is 2 to 3 weeks away, same as Success. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all of it. Yeah, Stipe Perica could be back this week, I should say. Yeah.
So I'd imagine those guys will probably be on the bench, maybe. They won't be there for the start.
Yeah, I think Perica could be on the bench. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, he could be, yeah. I think he could be on the bench. Kabasele, I'm not so sure, and yeah, we could be seeing them. But Queen has only just got back running as well, so he won't be back for a little while yet.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's good to see Keane's back in training because I think we missed a little bit of creativity in midfield, and we'll get on to the formation that and team we want to see Watford put out against Huddersfield. Sam, I wanted to get your thoughts on the big quote from the press conference that we posted on WD18, courtesy of Elliot, of course. Xisco Munoz said that he has the best strikers in all of the Championship, and I'd have to say 99% of people have probably disagreed with that comment. Are you maybe that 1%, or are you the 99%?
I would say I'm in the 99%. I think we kind of have to appreciate how difficult a manager's job is at times in press conferences. You know, when you're put on the spot straight away saying, do you think your players are good? Very few managers would come out and say, nah, don't really rate them. Perhaps though there's a fine line between, just kind of dismissing the comment and, saying I've got the best strikers in the league, because that is a massive statement that hasn't been lived up to at all so far this season. And, I really hope in the Huddersfield game that they start to prove us wrong, but whether they actually do is a whole nother question.
Well, Elliot, I think it was Adam Leventhal who asked the question, and he said that it was to do with the confidence of the strikers. And he said, I have the best strikers in all of the Championship. Is that for you just maybe him being, some people have suggested, slightly deluded, or do you think it's maybe an attempt to just maybe boost the confidence of the players at his disposal and the strikers who, as Sam mentioned, have struggled this season?
Yeah, I'm going to defend Xisco Munoz's quote. I'm not going to say I agree with it because I don't. They're two players that are very focused on confidence. They play at their best when they're at their most confident. It's easy to say Dini's not performing because there's no crowd, but there is an aspect of he does feed off the crowd. He's very well. He's definitely improving when he's got the crowd around him, and I think maybe it's a result of Xisco's enthusiasm and positivity, because he said even last week that Manchester United were a perfect team before coming up against them. We all know that's not true. Obviously, they're a great team, but it's just not true. That's a fact. He said training this week was perfect, and it may have been perfect, but it was perfect last week as well, and it was perfect the week before. So
the theme emerging.
So I think it's more his positivity. I wouldn't say he's lying, because I don't think he's a liar. He comes across as very nice, and I do like him a lot. But I think it could be a bit of a language barrier. It could be just that he's very, very positive. And yeah, I think it's him trying to hype up his players and try and build that confidence that we know that both of them have been lacking so far this season.
I think a big thing, though, that Watford fans are frustrated at, and this is maybe supplemented with Adam Leventhal's article, is realistically, we're not going to bring in another striker. We've got, if you include Ismail Assar, we've got 6 strikers at the club: Dini, Gray, Success, Glenn Murray, Perica and Sarr. So
João Pedro as well.
And João Pedro. And they haven't really performed this season. So I think the frustration from Watford fans is we're not going to see another striker come into the club. Are you one of those guys who are like, this is a problem that we haven't got a proven goal scorer in the league? I mean, we haven't seen him, but it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, Troy's not the same player. And I think everyone needs to kind of recognise that. Not necessarily Watford fans, but I hear these commentators on BT Sport last week being like, "Oh, Deeney loves these opportunities." Well, he scored how many times this year? 4 times,
Yeah, I
maybe,
think so.
and 3 of them were penalties. So, you know, I just think addressing the last point as well, that I think what Xisco says to the players behind in private and what he says in the public with the media, it must be 2 very different things, because he can't be impressed with what he's seen so far from Deeney and Gray. I thought last week, I personally, I was a bit harsh on Gray. Like, looking back on it, I thought he seemed to hold the ball up well, and he seemed to, get those flick-ons. And I think Troy does that quite well also. But the problem is, you want your strikers to score goals, and they're simply not doing that. And I think that's why we need to bring someone else in. Simply, we thought perhaps Glenn Murray could kind of be that poacher in the box, but that's obviously not worked out. We need someone between now and the end of the season to maybe get us 15, 16 goals.
Although we want someone to come in, can you actually realistically see us bringing anyone in?
I really don't think so, unless it's a young sort of player, young and hungry. But also, maybe perhaps we'll use the loan market as well. But it'd be very difficult to tempt a top striker. I see a lot of people saying get Dwight Gale in on loan. It'd be very difficult to get a player like that in, and I just think it kind of points to. I'm not meaning to talk about the summer already. We're in January, but it's going to be a massive summer coming up, regardless of what division we're in. We're going to have to. The squad needs a whole shake-up. We need to rebuild from scratch and go from there.
Could you see any transfer activity this window, or do you think we're just going to keep with what we have and kind of hope, as Adam Leventhalin is sending his article, that they can come good? And just across the pitch, not just up front. Do you think there'll be any additions, or are you expecting a quiet window?
I think it'll be quiet with outgoings as well, which I guess is a positive if I'm trying to be optimistic. But yeah, I think we could get a midfielder in. I think there is definitely a hunt going on for a midfielder. I guess Wallace could be the option, but we don't know what's going on there. Going back to what Sam said, I agree. I don't think we will sign a striker. I think another issue is with work permits at the moment. If you're looking to get a young, hungry striker, if they've not got international experience, then they're likely not going to get a work permit, and then you've got no chance. So do you loan him out to Udinese for a year? I think that would actually frustrate the fans more if you get a good striker in and then send him straight out on loan to Udinese or to a club in Spain. So I don't think they've got it easy, to be honest with you. But yeah, I can't see anything happening on the striker front. But I think we could bring in a midfielder, perhaps, maybe a left back.
I perhaps think if the worst comes to worst, that we're sat here in the middle of February with the same problems, which it looks like we might well be, is that we saw that Hungbo came on against Man United and was so hungry. And whether or not he can play up front is, I don't know enough about him yet personally. But why not try with the youth every so often as well? I know it's a massive risk in the Championship, particularly when we need to be winning games, but they can't be doing much worse than the current group that we've got already. So I suppose that will be an option with the last resort.
I don't know if you guys saw it in the week. Joseph Hungbo absolutely nailing one into the top right-hand corner in training. What a finish, by the way. I'll tell you what, Sam makes a really good point there, Elliot, about Hungbo. When he came on, he only, 10, 15 minutes, and he looked really bright. He was taking on players, and that was something we've really missed, and he was raw, and that's something that's so unexpected for an opposition. Are you someone who would like to see more of him? I know we've only seen 15 minutes of him, but the signs were that actually some of these younger players maybe will give some of these players in the starting 11 a run for their money, or is it just about keeping what we have at the moment and not maybe risking it at this point?
It's something I've been saying since the summer when Dan Phillips was in the first team fold a lot, and he would come on and he would maybe concede a couple of fouls, but that you could see how committed he was. You could see how he was quite fearless. And it was similar with Hungbo. You could see how fearless he was. He showed tenacity. He kept going, and he drew a couple of fouls, which I think was great. I think Xisco said today that he's more than willing to look to the under-23s. He knows he's got talent in that squad that he can call upon. We saw on the weekend, it wasn't just Phillips and Hungbo that he had at his disposal. He could have brought on Sam Dolby. He could have brought on Kane Critchlow, Mason Barrett. So I think he is looking to bring a couple of those into the first team if he needs to, or if he wants to switch things up. So yeah, I'd be completely on board with it. I think there's a lot of talent there. I know there's Shaq Ford as well, who I think is only 16, so obviously it'd be very early to bring him in. But I think he's someone to watch as well over the next few years, maybe coming on off the bench like Hungbo has done. And yeah, I'd like to see him get a few more opportunities.
I'll tell you what, that's a nice segue onto the Huddersfield game. And I think maybe the big selection dilemma for Xisco, Sam, is what think people have said the 4-4-2 is what we're expecting from Xisco from the 3 games we've seen so far. But it's probably the first game so far against Huddersfield where we need to really dominate and play on the front foot. The other games, because Norwich, Swansea, Manchester United are all really good footballing sides. We've had quite a pragmatic approach, a low block, very compact in the defensive block as well. I think we're at home against Huddersfield, and Huddersfield have been good this season, but we need to take the games to them. What changes would you make from the team we saw against Manchester United?
Yes, it's a really difficult one. I think he's got so many dilemmas and selection headaches in there, including at the back as well. Where does he bring Ben Wilmot back in? I know Troost-Ekong perhaps was arguably at fault for the goal, but he was solid except for that. And Wilmot's been brilliant. Sierralta's undroppable at the moment, so it'll be really interesting to see where he goes with that. It's going to be really interesting to see. I do think he will. I think he'll stick with the 2 up top. I think he's going to want to go with Deeney and Gray, simply because he said that in the press conference. Again, we talk about the confidence, and I think he really values Deeney as a leader, the way he speaks about him in general. So I do think we will see Deeney and Gray up front together again, and I do think, whether I want is a whole separate thing, but my gut feeling is we might see a very similar team to the one at Man United. Perhaps James Garner or Tom Cleverley will come in for Nathaniel Chalobah, obviously, who's most probably injured, and probably we'll see Zinchenko and Sarr on the same sides.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to see Zinchenko play his first Championship game, because what I saw against Manchester United, Elliot, was someone who just looked really bright on the ball, very positive, looked to get forward, drifted into the central areas. And I think the fact I know he could play on the left-hand side, but it wasn't his favoured position, let's say, out the 3. He could play right, middle or left. And I think he could be maybe even better on the right-hand side. Number 1, start Zinchenko. And number 2, as Sam mentioned, midfield, do you bring in Tom Cleverley with Will Hughes, or do you bring in James Garner?
It's a tough one, because you want someone who's quite defensive-minded, and we know Garner has been more suited in a 6 normally to playing further up, which is where he's sort of started to play a little bit more. He's played a bit more attacking. I don't think that's his best position. I think he's better off in a 6. So if we're looking more defensively, perhaps he's the better option to go alongside Hughes. I think Xisco might be quite slow to bring Hughes back, because although he played 90 minutes on the weekend, he seemed a little concerned not to overwork him too early. That was his first 90 minutes of the season. So we could even see a midfield of Cleverley and Garner. Going back to Zinchenko, I think Sema might get a rest. I think he's been good, but I think he's been a little bit tired. I think maybe I would stick with Zinchenko on the left for this week and have Sarr on the right, because I think that's the only option we really have. And then bring in Sema off the bench, and not for Zinchenko though, because I'd like to see him get 90 minutes.
Would you be tempted, Elliot, to switch the formation maybe from a 4-4-2 to a 4-2-3-1 and put Zinchenko just behind the striker?
In theory, that sounds fantastic. Yeah. Who would you play up top as well? Do you play Gray on his own? I think Gray does the running that the likes of Sarr, Zinchenko, Sema will do. So I think he's probably the best fit for that system, rather than someone like Deeney, who might sort of drop deep and then we lose that option at the top of the attack. So. And then there's João Pedro, who we've not even mentioned yet, who could be on the left, he could be up front. So I think we've probably got more options at our disposal if we play a 4-2-3-1, but I just don't see that happening, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with you, Elliot. I can't see Xisco moving away from the 4-4-2. I mean, this is the thing. We've seen 3 games of him so far. From what I've read at Dynamo Tbilisi, he wasn't exactly the most attacking coach, and it is only 3 games into his managerial career at Watford. But I think, Sam, the weekend will give us a really good indication, and finally maybe confirm whether he is as an attacking coach as maybe the club made out in their opening article. Because, as I said to you before, we were in a 4-4-2 compact defensive, looking to play on the break. Do you reckon Saturday will be maybe an indication of what we can expect under Xisco Munoz?
I think I wouldn't even say Saturday. I'd say the next 5 games are absolutely massive, not just for Xisco Munoz, but for the whole of Watford Football Club in general. I think these are the defining 5 games of our season in terms of whether we're going to be in the automatic promotion push, whether we solidify our place in the playoffs, or whether we fall out of the mix completely. I think that it will tell us a lot about Xisco Munoz, and it's going to be really important for him to bring that attacking identity that we've longed for so much. That I don't want to see us go 1-0 up and sit back kind of thing. I want to see us go for games and perhaps play some more entertaining football. But yeah, it's going to be absolutely massive the next few weeks for Cisco.
Tell you what, Elliot, before we get your score predictions, I forgot to ask you about the Bachmann Foster situation, which, is split opinion. We put a tweet out on WD18, which was, would you give Daniel Bachmann a league opportunity or play him against Huddersfield? And I'd say it was pretty even in terms of people. Some people were saying, Bachmann's 26 years of age. He's coming against Manchester United, made some really good saves, looked great on the ball as well, which I think is an improvement on Foster. But obviously Foster is our number one at the moment. You're probably going to split opinion here, Elliot. You can't really win. But would you start Daniel Bachmann against Huddersfield and be bold? Or do you continue with what we know in Ben Foster?
For this week, I'd start Daniel Bachmann. I think, yeah. I'm going back and forth in my mind now on it. I voted no in that poll. I voted for Foster. I don't know if that's because that's what Watford are going to do, because I really don't see them starting Bachmann this weekend or pretty much any weekend for the rest of the season. But yeah, I think I'd give Daniel Bachmann a go, just so there's a bit of competitiveness between the two, so there's a bit of a war for the goalkeeper spot, because competition does breed that ability, and we know that they'll probably perform at a high level if they know that if they drop form, then they've got someone else who can come in and take their spot. So I think give Foster a scare. I don't know if he needs one, but give Foster a scare, put Bachmann in this week, see how he does, and then maybe rotate on Tuesday.
It was a really interesting quote, wasn't it, Sam, that Daniel Bachmann, that he did an interview with the club and he said, I feel good, like I've got a good bit of form. Hopefully the tables will turn soon. I'll be the one playing every 3 days and not every 3 months in the cup. That's what I'm here for. So it's fighting talk from Daniel Bachmann. And I think maybe the dilemma Watford have as a club with the goalkeeper situation is, we mention it every week in terms of Dalberg's out on loan at the moment, Bachmann's number 2. But these are 2 young keepers who are upcoming and clearly very talented. At what point do we give them an opportunity? And what point do we say, you know what, Daniel, yes, you're going to be our number 1?
I think Foster is on his last legs, not just in his career. I think he's very close to retirement, but also in terms of him being dropped in the team, that he's let us down. I mean, while he's made some spectacular saves, I'd say he's made more mistakes so far this season than he has in the previous 2 or 3 years that he's been at us. I mean, it's ironic we're playing Huddersfield, and it was his mistake that cost Vladimir Ivic his job in the first place. So, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. But again, I do think that it is kind of Foster's last chance. And if Bachmann does come in, I really want to see him do well, because it's so difficult being a number 2 goalkeeper. When am I going to play next? I might only get 3 or 4 games a year. And he's been so patient. And when he has come in, except for that Tranmere game last year, which we've all kind of forgotten anyway, he has been superb. So I really, really hope for Bachmann that he does get an opportunity soon.
I'll tell you what, lads, we'll wrap it up with the score prediction for the Huddersfield game. I'd say I'll kick it off. I'm going to go for an optimistic 2-1 Watford. 2-1 Watford. Cisco's second win of his tenure at Watford. Sam, what are you going for?
I'm going to go 3-1 Watford.
That wasn't an optimistic. that wasn't an optimistic reaction.
You know what? I'm thinking though that we're a Watford fan channel, so I don't. I feel like every week I'm kind of like, oh nah. But now I'm going to say 3-1 Watford. I think they're going to be up for this one.
I didn't want to force you. I don't want to force the score prediction, mate. What do you think?
I'll go 2-0 Watford, because for once I genuinely believe Watford are going to win. And yeah, I think it'll be 2-0. I was about to say the goal scorers. I've got no chance of predicting that. Yeah, 2-0 Watford.
Yeah, that is very true. It's going to be a difficult one against Huddersfield. Fingers crossed Watford can get all 3 points. If you did enjoy the match preview, guys, please do leave a like. Don't forget to follow Elliot and Sam on their social medias. The link will always be in the description below to go and give them a follow. Don't forget to subscribe to WD18 for more Watford-focused content. And we'll see you very, very soon. Cheers, guys.